most importantly today, you need to first build up a culture. Okay, today I think most of the organizations suffer, okay, because they are not able to build up a cybersecurity culture in the organization. And if you must have seen, just because of this, there are a lot of organizations that fails to implement an effective risk-based approach in terms of your compliance. Your matrices would consist of what are your key assets in your organization. This comes as a most important step, because if you are not able to define, okay, what are your assets, your critical assets in the organizations, you do not know what to protect.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Gaurav Batra show. Today we are going to talk with Krishnendu Dutta. He is having around 13 years of experience in security and GRC management, and with whom we are going to talk how we can have effective metrics in the GRC world. Hey Krishnendu, welcome to the GB show.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Gaurav, for having me here.
Thanks for giving your precious time to me, and thanks for agreeing and being here on time. And Krishnendu, as I just announced that we are going to look to have how we are going to have effective metrics in GRC world, right? But when I say metrics, right? So what does it mean when we talk about governance, risk, and compliance? What is the metrics in that?
First of all, Gaurav, I would say thank you so much for bringing up this topic. I think it's very important today. We talk a lot about cybersecurity. We talk a lot about governance, risk, and compliance. Yeah. But I think what you have touched today, it's about how effectively we can measure the GRC actually. And why today we are talking about this, because this is how you will be able to convince your management as to what is most efficient today. If you have to drive this, the GRC program, I think it's very important to have the metrics in place. So before I start with this, the most important aspect is to understand what is crucial for your organization. Now, when we talk about GRC is divided into three parts, I would say. One is basically your statutory compliance. When we talk about statutory compliance, for an example, if I have to give you, it's about the certain guidelines which are live today, right? Now we are soon going to approach the digital personal protection bill actually. Second most important aspect is your enterprise risk management program, okay, where we talk about all the risks that are currently present in your business, okay, and how do we remediate that. So, and the third most important part would be your organization compliance, where we talk what is most necessary for your organization. So for an example, if I have to give you, let's say if you want to enter the office premises, you should have your iCard in place, or probably your biometric access has to be enabled basically, right? So this is how you divide your compliance measures. Okay. Now, when it comes to metrics, it is going to tell you very specifically that how many people in your organization are following that effectively.
Okay.
Right? So it's not about people, it's about the building up the right set of processes as well as the technology, whether the right technologies are in place in order to support your governance, risk, and compliance program. Right? So this is what we call it as the effective people, process, and technology in cybersecurity, which you must have heard a couple of times. Yeah. And this is how you this is your first step to measure your overall
so for the
governance,
GRC,
risk,
yes.
and
so
compliance.
That is why I think metrics are quite important for any organization and done. So if I am planning to do it, so what are the key elements I should look into that this gives my metrics a wholesome approach, that this is properly I have covered and designed on my approach?
Yeah, I think most importantly today, you need to first build up a culture. Okay, today I think most of the organizations suffer, okay, because they are not able to build up a cybersecurity culture in the organization. And if you must have seen, just because of this, there are a lot of organizations that fails to implement an effective risk-based approach in terms of your compliance. So first of all, building up that culture is the responsibility of a CISO. Second most important aspect is to get the right set of people as your resources, the right resources in your organization. which who can help you support the entire program. Third most important aspect is awareness, actually. Right? When we talk about awareness, people should know what the cybersecurity team is doing, what are they here for, basically, and what are you expecting from the organization to comply with.
Okay.
Right? And the fourth most important aspect is to align your business objectives or your cybersecurity objectives with the stakeholders. So it could be your CTO, your CEO, okay, your technology stakeholders, you yourself, your team, all of them becomes your major stakeholders in the organization itself. So these are the most important elements. Now, when we talk specifically about the matrices, your matrices would consist of what are your key assets in your organization. This comes as a most important step, because if you are not able to define, okay, what are your assets, your critical assets in the organizations, you do not know what to protect.
Exactly, definitely.
Right? So I think it's very important to first have that updated. When I say this one, it's an updated one. So people miss out on updating their asset management list. So that's the first thing. Second most important aspect is to ensure what kind of threats, okay, or risks that particular asset may be facing at this point of time. Okay. Right? So you kind of put this across into picture. And the third most important aspect, you need to measure them in terms of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, what we call as the security triads. Right? That's how you will be able to get what is a proper risk score that you want to give against that particular asset, and to see if what kind of security controls you want to put across in place in order to ensure that risk is mitigated. So this way, I think you should be able to prepare a metrics in place and present it into your management. And
awesome. And I think you have mentioned risk score. That's a good term which has come out. So when we actually presenting it to the board or to anyone else, so is it a right score which is giving to me? So here what I'm talking about is checking the effectiveness of metrics, that how I am calculating it. As you mentioned, the assets. So, yeah. Okay. So in my inventory, it's showing me, let's say 100 servers. So is it actually I have the 100 servers, right? So how we do governance of the metrics itself? So what best practices we have in that space?
I think the first important aspect is to first ensure, if I have to break this down, what is your asset in the first place? So let me take an example. Let's say today you have a web server, basically, right? Or probably your organization website, if I have to talk about. Now, that particular website, it could be some publicly exposed website where you are collecting the information of the customers. And when we say collecting information of the customers, it could be the personally identifiable information, that is a PII that we call. Now, when we talk about it, we need to ensure where are we processing this kind of information, whether we are processing on on-prem server or probably it is on a third-party cloud. If it is on-prem, then you have all the set of controls in order to maintain the server and things out there, right? So you have a complete control of that particular data itself, which ensures that the risks are minimal. Now, when you are putting it on a public cloud, basically, okay, then of course you need to ensure that whether you are putting all the security matrices in place in order to ensure that those data is properly encrypted, no third party have access to that kind of an information, basically. So this is how you kind of do a proper risk assessment on each and every particular asset, and then you present, as I said, you present it to the management, hey, this is my most critical asset itself, and this is what needs to be protected with high priority.
Exactly, and due diligence is definitely required when you creating those metrics.
Absolutely.
Right? So, in one of the previous statement, you were mentioning about the people, who we need to engage while creating these metrics, right? So, you mentioned CISO is, of course, one key role. But apart from that, in an organization, who should be involved while we are designing these metrics? Either what kind of stakeholders or contributors we needed?
Yeah. See, first of all, you should have your team in place, okay? So because without your team, I don't think you will be able to run the show. So you have to have an experienced team of people to conduct the risk assessment. Here, the most important, stakeholder is the asset owner, right? And he or she can tell you, that what kind of risks today that particular asset is kind of exposed to. Okay, and whether those are like, very critical assets, or whether they can kind of like, label it or classify that particular asset as per the criticality. And you can like, you have to like, kind of conduct an audit, assessment, interview, whatever you call it as, with them to ensure that like whether that is still exposed to certain risks, or whether you already have like, some controls in order to like, mitigate those kind of risks, or it is partially closed basically. So that becomes most important stakeholder. Once you have this completed, I think it's very important for you to present this to your board members basically. When it's the board members, you will have your CTO, your CROs, the CISO, the CEO, as a matter of fact. Okay, and in organizations, you also have some engineering heads and all of those things. Even they too come into picture specifically to know how we are running the risk management program.
And when you're talking about board, when we are going with board, so board is interested not only in the controls but ROIs as well, right? Are we looking forward to have some metrics around the budget, finances as well in the GRC?
Yes, absolutely. Fine. Yes, that's true. I'm sorry. Yes, that's absolutely correct. So today, board first needs to understand, today, probably, I don't know whether to put this across or not, but most of the organizations in today's time, people complain, like, they put very less budget in terms of cyber security, or probably getting some more resources onboarded. And then they ask you 10 different questions, right? Like, whether this is really important or not, and are we putting the right, set of budget in the right place? So I think today, first of all, organizations needs to understand that, yes, today they have to put money on the board, okay, money on the table, in order to ensure that you have an effective cybersecurity program or a risk management program in place. Okay, that's very important for an organization. Second most important aspect, I would say, you as a CISO has to like, take that role to explain them that why this is very much necessary. Okay, of course, metrics does help, but certain times, you need to sensitize that topic as well. What can happen if this is not protected, probably? Or, the best way to scare the board, again, I don't know whether I'm just putting it across or not, but tightly across or not. But I think what's very much important is to also let them know that what is really happening today in the general market. Probably like today, organizations are getting breached just because of very small issues itself. It could be your vendor who has potentially exposed your data outside the organization, or probably there have been some loopholes at the development side where they were not aware of certain best practices, and it has like, simply leaked that information, right? So I think there are certain scenarios that you need to explain to the board, that why this is today, why the basic technologies or tools needs to be put in place in order to ensure you have a proper support to protect the organization assets and data. So this is something which I think which is very crucial as a CISO, where you need to put across. Although I also want to say today, where we are, when we talk about like, these set of today, when we talk about CISSPs and all of those courses itself, they even talk one specific aspect, and that is what is most important is, if the asset cost is 10 rupees, you cannot put 100 rupees to protect that asset itself. So that is also very much necessary today. You need to first understand the value of the asset, and based on that, you need to put your budget in place.
Fair enough. And I think, as you mentioned, CSSPs and CISO, there are many certifications which guide all these things, and you have put rightly together that this is how the metric should be. And risk score, it's not something new, but why as per you, the organization are still facing challenge to implement it? What are the challenges you can consider, and if any best practices you have around to fix?
I think organizations today are overwhelmed, because when they talk about like, they always think where to start from, basically, right? Because there are too much of things like, today governance in terms of statutory compliance, then your organization compliance, and all of those things are coming into picture. So they don't know where to start from, okay? So when we say you need to give a start, first of all, okay, it's never too late. So give yourself a starting point, first of all. But most importantly, you need to get the right set of people on board. That's very important. Okay, so today if I have to start a cybersecurity project or a GRC project, you need to first try interview people itself. Okay, as a step one. Okay, and you get the right set of people who have the right set of experience to implement that itself. Okay, that's the step one. Step along with that, I would also say that plan a budget. Okay, in place that today for this XYZ financial year, I would be putting, like we should be putting at least XYZ amount of money no matter what in order to get the best people as well as the best technology in place, right? Once you get your people on board, for sure that person will be responsible, accountable to run the show, right? And I don't want to really touch base on what are the specific duties of a CISO. Maybe that we can talk about it. But this is a starting point itself, that you need to plan a budget in place as well as you have to have the right set of people. That's where you can give it a fresh start to your GRC.
Okay. Fair enough. I think Krishnendu, quite a great insights on metrics which we have. So the last segment of this session which we have, where I will like you to address my audience directly, right? If someone of them are looking forward to start with the metrics, right? What will be the step-by-step approach if they want to learn or create?
First of all, I would say subscribe to Gaurav Batra's channel. I think you will get definitely more insights, because he gets the industry best people actually who can give you all the insights of how do we kickstart an implementation in the cybersecurity space. As I said, most importantly, guys, it's very important to understand what you want to protect. So have an updated inventory list in place, first of all, right? Get the right set of resources in place who can help you run an internal audit program, actually. And I think there is very important, after a span of time, please try and see what external industry standard is required for your organization. It could be ISO, it could be SOC 2, Type 2, which can give an external view of whether you are doing the right thing or whether you are not following the best industry best practices. So I think an internal view and an external view is very important in order to kind of effectively establish proper GRC program in place.
Okay. Awesome, Krishnendu. It was lovely talking to you, and
likewise.
As a ritual, I'd like to say thanks to you for coming on my show. So here's a small gift for you.
Thanks a lot.
And thank you everyone for watching. I will see you in the next Sunday. Till then, be safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.